You are now listening to Femme Regard Podcast with Tessa Markle
and Carolina Alvarez.
Femme.
Hey, Femme Fam. How many of you are beginner filmmakers like us who are trying to learn the trade all on your own? Scouring the web for help can be time-consuming and limiting. I mean, that's how we've learned most of what we know. But what if there was a structured online course on cinematography that you can follow right in the comfort of your very own home, aka editing bay? And that's why we're excited to spill the tea about our partnership with Tropic Color, a leading company in the production of LUTs, effects, and more. Most importantly, they've developed an online course that includes over 70 topics, led by 2 professional DPs who've worked on all types of sets and really know the industry. Tropic Color's Cinematography Masterclass will take you through pre-production, lighting, camera breakdown, and more. Here at Femme Regard, we only want to provide you with the best tools out there because we know it's possible to get better without having to spend thousands of dollars on film school. That's why we'd like to offer you a special discount code to sign up for Tropic Color's Cinematography Masterclass. Just head on over to tropiccolor.com, spelled the British way, TROPICCOLOUR, and use our code FEMME10, that's all caps, FEMME10, when you're checking out, and boom, all this knowledge at an already great price for an extra 10% off. Get it, fam?
Hi, Femme Fam.
Hey, guys.
So we're doing something special today. If you're listening as per usual and you want to get involved and see how you can take part in this, listen up. If you're watching, thank you guys so much for participating and donating and being a part of our Patreon. We're super excited to bring you video. You can see our lovely faces.
This is what we look like.
In case you weren't aware by the thousands of pictures we post of ourselves. So if you're listening, this is how you get to watch us. So we're still going to put out our usual podcast episodes as usual, but some of them we're also going to videotape. So in order to watch those, you have to be a part of our Patreon. And what is Patreon?
Patreon is this lovely platform for creatives like us to help support funder projects, create better content, and get on more episodes like this where you can see us live, because it costs money and we love giving back to you guys, and we want to just keep leveling up the kind of performance and stuff that we can provide to you.
Yeah, it's almost like a subscription to all things femme. So like, even if you can only give $1, you'll be giving us $1 a month, and that's all going to go towards this podcast and our films and all the stuff that we bring you guys. So let us know if you want to be a part of that. Follow our links, all that kind of cool stuff, and you'll get great rewards like this video episode.
Exactly. And so today, yes, today it's so funny because now with video, it's like, okay, do we start? We always start with tea, but now we have a guest here, so maybe
we have another lovely face.
We have to show the lovely face. So today we have Mr. Writer Corey McComb on the show.
Welcome.
Hello.
Thank you.
I really hope that ends up being like a cool little clip. Thanks for coming all the way to the network studios here in Culver City.
Thank you for having me.
It's a steaming hot day here, actually.
Yeah.
And we're going to have some hot tea.
Yes, please.
Because what's better on a hot day?
What's better? And I cannot wait to spill the tea on writing with you. So I found Mr. McComb on the lovely site medium.com, which I know I've mentioned on the show before, but just to reiterate.
I think you've mentioned Corey specifically on the show before too, right?
I'm pretty sure.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
like, take it
at
back,
that.
season 1.
I know you've been in our Instagram story for sure.
I have to go back and listen to that now.
Because it's such a great, so it's a website for writers, creatives, specifically writers to share stories and ideas and almost like how to do this or that. There's a variety of topics, and I found you, I think, under the inspired category.
Ooh.
Which, I mean, and what we talk about the show a lot is how to stay inspired. What can you do to keep your creativity going, which is why I have you on the show today, because as writers we hit those roadblocks and then we get caught up in, and then like how to keep it fresh and going, so I think reading articles, watching films, like for us filmmakers is really important to kind of keep the creativity going.
And caffeine.
And
Oh my god. Okay, so cheers.
Cheers.
Cheers. Long distance cheers.
Cheers.
We have the lovely, I think it's a white rose. I accidentally threw away the little thing.
Ooh.
Numi? Is that how
Very
you say the
floral.
brand?
Numi is the brand. It's organic.
I like it.
So yes, cheers, fam.
Cheers to Numi if you want to be a sponsor. Wink, wink.
Yeah.
We try every time. They still
We
don't
did
listen.
try.
but-
No one's listening, but one day. But we did some, as always, stockage on our
Okay.
guests.
We
And
joined your mailing list,
Good, good.
which is called the temperature
Love
check, by
that.
the way, guys, if you want to join as well.
And you have such an interesting bio. One that I misread the first time really got Tessa
Definitely made me
reread
laugh
it.
this morning when she told me.
I was like, I thought he was part of a circus. She's like, no, he was in a rock and roll
Rock and roll circus.
Yeah.
circus.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
tell us briefly what your story became to, like how you became a writer here and what
Yeah.
led you to writing.
Absolutely. I kind of came to writing a little bit later in life in the sense that I always hear people talking about how, oh, I was writing stories for as long as I could remember and always wanted to be a writer. And I was never like a good student in school, never really wanted to read or write. I didn't really start reading books until college. All I cared about when I was growing up was playing music in bands. So I was just like into punk rock and rock and roll and like touring in bands, like going on the Warped Tour, doing all that stuff.
Wow.
So I
How
wasn't.
old were you?
I was pretty young. I was
Okay.
16.
Nice.
Oh, wow.
Wow, yeah.
Yeah. So I was. That's why I say is just like kidnapped by the rock and roll circus, and then never really looked back until
Yeah.
until college, and then I started, getting more into books, kind of like the Hemingway and Kerouac, and just kind of all those like angsty
Yeah.
like 20-something-year-old
The classic,
novels.
like, old grumpy alcoholics that, yeah.
And I'd always liked writing, like the idea of being a writer.
Mhm.
It always seems like that cool lifestyle.
That's really cool.
But then I was playing a lot of music, and then I eventually had to kind of hang up the guitar and get like a real job. And then a few years went by where I was just kind of living that 9-to-5
Mhm.
cubicle life, like clocking in and out, coloring inside the lines. Just
Yeah.
nothing was really. I got to the point where I felt very like uninterested. Like I wasn't an interesting person just because I wasn't really interested in anything anymore. And I was still playing in bands. And what happened was I had a friend who had their own music blog in San Diego. It's called Listen SD.
Mhm.
And she was looking for people to go to shows and write concert reviews. And I was like, well, that sounds kind of cool. I want free concert tickets. So
Yeah, it's like the best of both worlds.
yeah, so I got I got to go and see like all kinds of like bands that I really liked. And something happened when I started writing these concert reviews. Like something just clicked where I was really locked in, and it was like the first time I'd written anything outside of school. And there was just like this magic that happened, just trying to express like a story. And I ended up also having a few articles went really well, and I got invited to go to music festivals
To write.
to do the same thing. And then
Wow.
it became like this music journalism journey, and that just really lit up my brain about, because I was playing in bands, but I was kind of playing like other people's songs. Like I
Mhm.
was never like the lead songwriter, and that kind of scratched one creative itch, right? But it wasn't like my own thing. And then when I started writing about these other things, it's like the whole world just kind of opened up, and I felt it's like rejuvenated, like
Yeah.
everything. I always say that there's, like some things in life come along and they make you forget about everything else.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But then some things come along and make everything worth remembering. Right. And
I like
that's what
that.
like writing was for me. All of a sudden it was like the world's beautiful, and there's like so much, even like the bad things are like inspiration now and like opportunities to write. And
There's stories in there.
Yeah.
That's how everyone connects with everything is
Mhm.
through the same story, and there's the good and the bad. But we all we
Yeah.
all can feel that energy, and I think as a creative too, like if that's what your calling is and you aren't doing that like 9 to 5 or you lose your sense. So that's really cool that you just
Yeah.
kind of then kept going with it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
And-
kept going with it. So just to speed, through like
Tell us where you are today now.
Yeah, and then I started doing like travel writing.
Yeah.
My girlfriend at the time, we wanted to travel, and so we set off. It was kind of like 2015 when Instagram travel was like kind of like coming up
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
and getting really big, and we're like, oh, that looks like fun. Like, let's go and do that. And we're able to kind of leverage use like making a blog and writing about different like travel experiences for like free stays and stuff like that. And eventually I got to the point where I felt like I was trying to fit into these like already existing niches kind of, like travel writing or music journalism. And that was like kind of a big leap for me, just to say like I want to write my own stuff, like whether it's fiction or just like blog posts like about life. Like I've always been a big fan of personal development and stories, self-help that's not like too preachy, that kind of like makes people think.
Yeah.
So that's really what I've been doing the last few years, with an emphasis on just kind of helping people that are maybe like feeling stuck like I was, kind of like take that jump, and whether it's writing or something else, to just like using creativity as like a bridge to kind of get over the existential dread that comes along with life sometimes,
And I think that's really inspiring for our listeners who are screenwriters and feel like maybe they could be stuck and not working on what they want to do in that field, and that there are other avenues out there for writing as well,
Yeah,
totally. Like Medium, it's like a great example.
Yeah, that's why I really love Medium. It's like, if I was just a writer, I would definitely be really blogging stuff and then working solely on scripts and writing all the time, because you can, like, that is a platform you can really just put everything out there for you, and for others that feel the same way as you about whatever
great
topic.
Feedback.
Yeah,
because it was like, you try and share things on like Instagram or Facebook, but people really aren't. People don't really like to read all that much, even the people that say they do, right? Like, that's why podcasts are so great.
Yeah, I think Medium has a word limit too, so they don't want them to be super lengthy. They keep them,
and it's just such a great way. When I found Medium before, when just trying to post things on like other social media platforms, it feels like it's get like scrolled over. It's like, oh no, this isn't like a picture, and all that. So
it's cool. So, question: if you want to have a sip of your tea,
and my pretty pink cup there.
I want to know, do you have a writing ritual? Like, as when you get ready for the day, is there something that helps you get in a creative mindset and like you feel like you're ready to sit down and write? Like, talk me through what that looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it definitely varies. I try and always write in the morning, like kind of be like one of the first things that I do. Luckily, I work for myself and remote, and I've actually built that life so like to solve for writing, because I used to wake up at like 5 a.m. before my 9 to 5 job, just so I could have a few hours to myself to do it. But I try and wake up and definitely just have coffee. Sometimes meditate, I'm like an on again, off again.
Yeah, me too. I hear you there.
Right, but for the most part, I just try and get to it. I'll read from a few different books. I usually have like a fiction or a nonfiction book to try and kind of like
stir some inspiration,
get me going.
Get you going.
Yeah, I mean, for me, the big thing is to know what I'm going to write before I start. So, like the planning ahead of time. Like I've been working on a book for the last year. So, it's like the days when you wake up and you're like, oh, what should I write? Like that can take up so much time. And that's how, like when the day ends and you didn't get any writing done, you're just like, oh.
Yes. I know what that feels.
So I don't have like a ton of like crazy rituals. For the most part, my goal is to just be able to have like at least 2 hours where I'm like, I'm locked in and I'm going to get like this chapter done, or if I'm working on something new,
I read a couple of I think they were your most recent articles from your website about like productivity. There was the one about sleep and just, being productive and all that kind of stuff. And I feel like a big thing I kind of got out of that was like, don't push it. Like, yes, do the work, but like, you can't push it. You've got to be creative when you're feeling the creativity. You've got to take the time to sleep and, all of that. I think that's,
otherwise you kind of just flat tire a little bit. I've noticed that I can't, if it's not coming to me, like it's not going to come to me. But that's why I'm curious if you have something when you are stuck where you're like, Is it I'm not planning the story structure well enough? Is it that I'm just, am I just exhausted? And then like
Yeah.
like it's almost like an athlete has to prepare themselves to like be well conditioned. I think a writer does too in a way.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that a lot of the time it's when you stop thinking about something that'll kind of jump to the surface, you know? So definitely like walking away before you're like totally burnt out, you know, like
I saw
Hemingway.
your Hemingway quote.
Yeah,
I loved
he's
that.
got a great story about how he would always write every day up until the point that he knew what was going to happen next, so that he could stop and then, you know, be sure where he's going to start the next day.
Yeah.
So he's like, I don't ever want to empty the well and let it replenish. So I try and follow that advice.
Yeah. I love that, but I feel like I would forget what I like had in
Yeah, when like I'm on a roll, it's just
right.
like,
You want to like
just,
keep going, keep
Yeah.
squeezing it out. But I think that, you know, so much about creativity is like being connected to yourself and to other people. And, you know, in 2018, I went through a big phase of burnout because I was trying to do too much, like working too much, putting a lot of pressure on writing. And that's kind of like a lot of the stuff that I write about is like the lessons that I need to read, like follow my own advice kind of. And I was really neglecting like spending time with other people, just like being outdoors and, you know, like sleep. Like, so when I'm such a cranky old man when I don't get sleep, and my creativity is one of the first things to suffer, like most people.
right.
For writing itself, though, when I get stuck, like working on a particular piece, what I've kind of realized is it tends to be that I just don't really know what I'm talking about yet. You know, because I try and take like a lot of different stories, like maybe from like history of my own life, and weave them into a lesson. And it's always the lessons, or it's always the chapters or articles that I'm writing that they just like I'm trying to fit it together, and it's taking me hours and hours, and then I realize, you know what, I just don't even know what I'm talking about yet. I'm not being clear. It's not that I don't have the right word. You know, if it's this, like for me, it easy, or the best articles that I've done that have like or like resonated tend to be the ones that were like the easiest to write, because it's just like naturally kind of came out. So if I get really blocked on a project or an article, I've learned to kind of take a step back and be like, okay, maybe you just don't really have all the pieces yet.
That totally makes sense. I've been working on a feature, and like the because I've broken it up to segments and acts. The acts that like I feel like I've really connected with, maybe put more of my personal touch on it. Yeah, that just flows. And like then I get stuck on like, okay, but did I hit this act marker, like where there needs to be the resolution or the change, and then that's like it kind of interrupts my creativity, and then I have to like think story structure, and that's where I've been starting to like, I feel like you said that's when I get stuck, is when I don't have the plan all yet. And we've had a guest on the show talk about outlining. She's like, yeah, I don't think you should, you know, everyone has their own process. She's not super detailed in her outlines, and I've like allowed room for flexibility, but it's
I mean, she's big on like knowing the rules but then breaking all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
which is great. So
which, by the way, shout out to Pilar, in case you didn't know who we were talking about.
Pilar Alessandra. Yeah, watch that episode. Yeah, or listen to it. But it's now like there's just certain like things where I'm editing and I'm like, I don't know if that was like my creative vomit, as which is good to have, but like you said, there's still some missing gaps, and that's where I'm now trying to go back and be like, okay, does this make like is this like great, is this actually moving the story forward?
Well, I think there's this myth among writers that you're just going to sit down and it's going to always be flow, like just magic is going to come out of your fingertips, and then
why isn't that happening?
And
like what the hell?
And like there's definitely those moments, and they're beautiful, but so much of writing, at least for me, just comes down to architecture. You know, it's just moving things. It's like getting it out and then moving things around, moving paragraphs, and really looking at it. Like, you know, I try and I do the brain dump or the, what do you call it, the vomit?
Yeah. The word vomit onto paper.
Yeah, I
The
try and do
creative
that,
vomit, yeah.
but then it's also like, I think about it as, you know, being a good carpenter, like measure twice, cut once kind of thing, because I'll do so much vomit where then it's just extra work for me to like clean up and be like, all right, you know, like put it together.
Yeah.
No, I'm like literally considering like deleting some scenes. Fun fact right now. I'm being like, I don't know if like I liked where I was going. It was because I was finding a voice, which is I think important, like in the first step, like really find your characters, your voice, your world, and then like go cut it back. But
well, I think that helped us for the first thing we wrote, which was Desert Flowers. It was this Western that we had written originally as a short film and then a feature, but we wrote it together. And I think like our styles of writing balance each other out a lot, because Carolina is the like, you know, stream of consciousness, like get it all out there. And I'm the more, okay, but it has to be structured this way. So, you know, so that helped each other, I think, balance each other out. Yeah. But you know, that script's still not done. So really, what does that say in the end?
It's close.
Yeah.
We're gonna revise that. But yeah, so for I guess our listeners out there who are feeling a block right now, what's maybe,
or a lack of inspiration too.
What is like a quick way, like what are your go-to tips or something that helps you like defeat that, break down the wall?
Yeah, well, I mean, it kind of depends on if you're already in a project that you want to finish and you're feeling blocked. Like for me, I hit a big block with a book that I'm working on about 6 months ago, where I had just been working on it nonstop, and it's like a nonfiction, you call it like a self-help type of book. And I just got so burnt out on like editing and doing the same ideas and like writing in the same voice. And I could just feel myself. I mean, it's a block in this, even though I knew what I wanted to write, I just wasn't showing up inspired and excited. And I was randomly had these, I had never really written fiction before. Like I'd written a few short stories like years ago, but I had these ideas for these like satirical. I just moved to LA, so I was like getting all these new, like just like all the silliness that's in the city, right?
Yeah.
And had some ideas, so I put the book on hold, and I ended up spending like 2.5 weeks just like I wrote like 3 short stories and outlined like 4 other ones. And it was just I was just like cracking myself up, like I was like laughing at my own jokes at the computer, you know. And I never published them. I showed them to a few friends, but it was just so refreshing to just do something else. You know, I heard another podcast interview the director. I think his name was Noam.
Yeah, Noam
Kroll. Yeah,
and he was talking about how he plays guitar and how that kind of translates into other things. And I think that that's so true. It's like if you're just trying to push and push, like whether it's nonfiction and then going to fiction to just like write in another voice or something, or picking up a guitar, or just going and letting, because your subconscious mind, like it keeps working even when when you turn your logical brain off. So it's kind of nice to just like get out of your own imagination's way. And that's like the easiest thing to do, is just kind of like just leave for a little while.
Let it sit, go do something else to activate another part of your brain, and that's still going to be working. And I think another key thing that you just said that resonated with me is the excitement factor. I mean, as a writer, it's going to be a job in a sense. Like you have to show up, put in the work, put in your if you're a day-to-day writer, put in the work. But I think when you really like start to lose any excitement, like it's just kind of gone, I think that's when you should like take a pause and do something like that. Because I found it too, like when I wasn't excited anymore about my story, I wasn't gonna get anywhere. I really wasn't gonna feel any more inspired than I was, and I wasn't gonna come up with new ideas and concepts. But when I took a break, maybe watched something in the genre, read some other books, like just like did something else, and then felt that reignition come back to me, reignite the inspiration, then I was able to like hop back in because I was excited. I was like, oh wait, now it's clicking again, and I can have this creative flow. At least that's for me. I know you should always like do what you can to put in the work, but sometimes if you're not happy anymore, you're not going to do any better, I mean, in my opinion.
There's a total dichotomy to it, right? It's like there's a saying like in startup culture called the trough of despair, where like early startups will invent something, right? And it'll be like the buzz of the town, and they'll get all this like investor money, and then there's all this excitement, and it's like the same thing as like if you get a new creative idea, like you can see the story in your head,
You're
and
like,
you're just like,
ah,
yes, like it's gonna, and then comes the rub. Like these companies have to go and like deal with all the bugs that they didn't think that were going to be there.
Mhm.
The product market doesn't fit. Like, so there's this saying called the trough of despair. And it's the same thing with creativity. Like you do have to give yourself a break, but like what you were saying is you kind of have to just like expect it, and expect that
you're gonna have to work through
that inspiration is
Yeah.
going to wane,
Yeah.
and that you have to get through to the other side. Like Seth Godin, he's like a famous marketer and writer. He calls it the dip. And that's how you know you're on the right path almost, right? Like it's the struggle before the reward.
Yeah.
Okay.
sense.
So, yeah.
That's good. That's maybe where I'm at.
The reward will come.
Okay. Fingers crossed.
One other thing I wanted to mention too, because this was, I think, like part of your bio or on your website, but you said you're fascinated by the human condition. And I think that's probably a big inspiration for you. I know it is for me, like just seeing how people,
As actors, writers, like
yeah.
it's really important for
just how
us to
other people
observe.
think and
Yeah.
live. And like, I went to school for psychology, so I love thinking about how other people think,
Yeah.
But yeah, if you could just talk about that for a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm interested just in humans and like what makes humans tick, like myself included. The book that I'm writing right now is actually called Productivity is for Robots.
I love that.
And it's about like the basic premise is that like as people get more and more fearful of like technology kind of coming and becoming more human like, we kind of take a step to meet it halfway. And I'm also, so I have like my writer life, but then I also deal with like a lot of like young companies that are launching products. So there's like all the business optimization, squeezing the most out of every day, kind of things like that. And it's always been interesting to me that, and I've fallen in this trap myself of like overly optimizing life and trying to be as productive as possible.
Oh
So-
yeah, easy to do that.
Yeah, I mean, our society just really rewards just like who can go the longest and the hardest and
Yep.
everything like that. So, the book and my interest in the human condition is kind of coming back to like what are the things that make us human and how to lean into that to get the most out of creativity. So,
Yeah.
connecting with other humans.
Like are we talking like putting the phone down, like human to human interaction, or do you feel like there's now it's actually part of the human like day-to-day interaction where we can still do both? Like I'm curious where you find the technology, like what's
Yeah, that's a good question. It's not, I don't really think that we need to like banish technology. It's not like a cry
Right.
against that, but I think it's just coming back to, we look at like procrastination like as like a bug or like that need to escape is like something that is something wrong, but a lot of it is what kind of keeps us human. And
procrastinate?
yeah, it's like kind of like your body, like your mind telling you something, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a time and a place, obviously. Like the beauty of technology is it lets people connect that have,
Right.
like
hi.
we connected. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it like eliminates these geographical limits. But then on the other hand, like when, like especially for creators, there's such a pressure to like put stuff out just like constantly. Just like be constantly be on. And when we really celebrate people that are willing to just like, chase their passion above anything else, it's easier and easier to put like friendships on the back burner. Like it's like that joke, it's like the meme joke. It's like turning 30 is just you and your friends saying, once things slow down, we're gonna all hang out until you die.
Totally.
But I think that those like spending time with other people or connecting with yourself and the world around you without like the technology or getting sucked into that like productivity mode, like that's actually
24/7.
that's actually what's going to help you be not just productive, but like find real meaningful accomplishment in life. It's like how you kind of, being connected is going to lead to those big creative insights. And then those creative insights are going to get you so excited that you're going to accomplish things that are really worth doing in the first place.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree with that 100%.
Yeah, it's really easy, I think, to just get stuck in a pattern of like, I have to get to here, I have to do that, and then I have to post this, and then I have to write this, and then I'm doing this, and then I'm gonna go to bed and die,
It's
and
just
then do it again the next day.
just
And
an arms race of
yeah.
output, right?
Rich, and we talk about it all the time, like us handling our life and the production company and the podcast and the features that we're trying to work on, and it gets like that, and then I'm like, Tessa.
Well, yeah, Carolina's of the mind that, you always want to be doing something, which you do, but sometimes I'm like, girl, we got to do one thing at a time.
I just
we still
get
have to
so
live our life,
excited.
So true.
Yeah, so it's a mix of both.
Yeah.
But I mean, listen, guys, robots are going to take over the world eventually. It's going to happen, so we might as well enjoy our lives in the meantime.
Right. We need to remember how to stay human for when that happens. So
Exactly.
we can keep going.
Exactly. I mean, I feel like Tessa would become like part robot, and that would be really cool. Like,
okay.
I wouldn't do that because
Like Planet Terror style with like
yeah,
a gun
like
leg. Yeah.
or like some, yeah, exactly. You have like a really cool like badass
Yeah.
leg.
It's like a new script in the works.
I
right?
know.
Yeah,
right?
there we go.
Action, next genre.
Where you convinced me to get a biotic like a robotic leg.
Yeah,
and,
totally.
Or whatever we had. Yeah, Corey. Yeah, come on, write for us.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So what I guess we like to leave our listeners with just a last bit of anything that you'd like to share that inspires you. Like, is it a book you're reading right now? A song?
Yeah, because we talked a little bit about this
talked a
already, like
little
what
bit.
gets you inspired, but do you have like a favorite book or film or anything that you like to go to for that extra bit of inspiration?
I mean, I'm always reading, new books and stuff. Like nothing is really coming to mind. Like I'm a big music fan, so I'll have like big artistic crushes on different like musicians, like Josh Homme of Queens of the Stone Age. I'll listen to him sometimes if I'm just trying to like get into that like middle finger up kind of mode,
Right on.
Stuff like that. Right, Ryan Holiday is a great writer
He's
who I really
a
love.
brilliant writer. Yeah.
And
Really like him.
he really inspires me a lot because he makes writing like kind of accessible and things like that.
Another great one to like
Yeah.
when you're feeling burnt out. He has some great, I think, inspiration on
Yeah.
productivity as well. Yeah,
Nice.
he's
Yeah.
great. Yeah, and that's also he's written stuff on Medium.com too.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So
His
he's
stuff's
great.
on there. Fiction for me is really what made me fall in love with writing in the first place. So
Favorite childhood book? Go.
The Sun Also Rises by
Oh, okay.
Hemingway. And I don't know if that's really a
Oh.
childhood.
I don't know if I call that a childhood, but yeah, we'll count that.
High school.
High
Yeah.
school. That's good.
Totally.
That's good. PG-13. Cool.
Yeah.
You really wanted to be Hemingway. Like that's
It's such like the cliche, right?
Yeah.
No, it's
But I mean, it's a cliche for a reason. 'Cause
and
he's
a good
You know
one.
what I
He's
mean?
good. Yeah.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Are you ever gonna abscond to Perry with your wifey and just screw America and the day job? I'm just gonna sit down and write. Have you
I
ever
think
felt like
so.
doing that? Yeah.
Yeah.
Or New
Well,
York. We were just talking.
Yeah.
You
Well, we
might do
travel
New York.
quite a bit, so we've been able to do that, and it's nice to, especially in the new world where we all are doing jobs that didn't exist like 10 years ago.
Yeah.
You can just kind of like pick
It's
up
crazy.
and travel and make time for writing. I mean, for me, I've gone to the point where it's always a beautiful thing when you can go to a new city and find a little cafe and sit down and write. And it's a privilege of me to be able to say that I've done that a lot. But as wherever I am, whether I'm like at my parents' house or I've been this week in Santa Barbara, just this last week, waking up in the morning and writing, as long as you get it done, like you feel good. So that's kind of what it comes down to for me, is like no matter where I am,
Right.
just like get those words out.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Guys, get those words out.
And let our listeners know where they can find you. I mean, we talked about your articles on Medium, but as far as your website, if you want to share any social media, all that good stuff.
Yeah. I'm at Corey McComb on Instagram and Twitter. I don't get on there too much, but I'm planning on making a comeback. I've been kind of like in the mine hunting for diamonds,
Yeah.
Yeah. We
I'm
feel
about
that.
to come back and
We're helping
publish
you
some
take
stuff.
off.
Yeah,
It's all
you
good.
are. And then CoreyMcComb.com and my newsletter, The Temperature Check, is where I just kind
It's
of
fantastic, guys. Already loving it.
complain and make recommendations. And
Complain. I'm here
do
for
stuff like that.
complaining.
Yeah, so
All
check me out
good.
there.
Amazing. Well, guys,
Amazing.
check him out. Make sure you give his articles and his blog a read and get on Medium. If you're not already, like we've been talking about this, get some inspiration. But thank you so much for coming
Thank
on today.
you.
This was great and
Yes,
super
thanks
Thanks for
inspiring.
the chat. Thanks for the tea.
And we'll see you guys next time. Thanks for listening to Femme Regard Podcast. If you like what you hear, tune in next time for more tips on the filmmaking business and insightful conversations with industry professionals over tea.
We can only grow with your support, so please subscribe, share, rate, and give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcast. If you leave us a great comment, we might give you a shout out on the show. For more on us, check us out at femregard.com.